Shalom, sis. How y'all doing? Huh? Huh? Uh-uh. He probably just deaf. I still think he's deaf. Me personally. I still think he's deaf. Me personally.
Not as bad as it has been during the week, but
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and open up because we got a lot of stuff to read today. We want to get through as much as possible. So we'll open up with in prayer, and then we'll read our 10 Commandments. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. All right, we're going to read our 10 Commandments today before we get into picking up where we left off last time. Last time I was teaching, we were going over the commandments in the book of Deuteronomy. So we're just going to pick up where we left off last week. Last week we ended with chapter 12, so this week we'll pick up in chapter 13. But before we do that, we'll go to Deuteronomy chapter 5 this time, just to make it a smoother transition once we get into what we get into today. And we're going to read from verse 6 through 21. As I mentioned last time, Deuteronomy is just the second law, or the commandments repeated the second time. That's where you get the deut in the prefix of the word Deuteronomy. So you'll see a lot of the laws being repeated here in the book of Deuteronomy. And this is why you have the 10 Commandments restated. All right, it says in verse 6 in Deuteronomy chapter 5, I am Yah, thy Elohim, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, Yah, thy Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of Yah, thy Elohim, in vain, for Yah will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as Yah thy Elohim hath commanded thee. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yah thy Elohim. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that Yah thy Elohim brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore Yah commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, as Yah thy Elohim hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which Yah thy Elohim giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Okay. So we started off in that very chapter, and then we skipped. We went to chapter 7, and then we skipped to chapter 12. And just to do a brief recap, in chapter 12, we were talking about different things, sacrifices, altars, how we would dominate the nations that we possessed and not allowing them to serve their gods. Right? We talked about some of that stuff. In chapter 7, we went over covenants and marriages, etc. Did anybody want to recap on any of those topics before we get into chapter 13 today? Some of the stuff that we talked about last time. Okay. So we're in chapter 13 now. Yeah. Oh, Deuteronomy. Yeah, we're just picking up where we left off. And again, the reason I'm picking Deuteronomy is because at chapter 12, every chapter subsequent to that is nothing but commandments. In Exodus, you'll read commandments, then you'll get some history, you'll get some situations that happen, then you'll get some more commandments. And it's like this cycle keeps on going. It's the same in Leviticus. It's the same in Numbers. You can still read all the commandments. As a matter of fact, we're commanded to remember them, so you can't really know them if you don't read them. But in Deuteronomy, it's chapter back to back to back to back, nothing but commandments, especially starting from chapter 12. So now we're in chapter 13, and once we get to a certain point, we'll stop there. Now, before we get into it, why are we going over this? The point is, the keeping of the commandments is one, that's what gives you wisdom in the first place. All right, you can't have a relationship with the Most High unless you are obedient to what His Word tells you to do, okay? In order for you to be obedient to what His Word is telling you to do, you have to know it. You can't know it if you don't read them, okay? can't know it if you don't read them. And this is one of the reasons why we're doing this today and why we'll keep on doing this subsequently, all right? So in Deuteronomy 13, it starts off by saying, if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder cometh to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken to the words of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams, for Yah, your Elohim, proveth you, to know whether you love Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart and with all your soul. So from verse 1 through 3, what are some of the key takeaways that we're getting from this? Right, it's the repetition of the first commandment, right? It's no other gods before him. But particularly, it's coming from the mouth of a prophet, okay? This is the main point of this commandment here. Now, how do you know if somebody is a prophet or not? How does the law let us know? It comes to pass, right? That's one reason. But before, see, you have to wait for it to come to pass, right? So let's say you have a person, let's just say me. Let's say I come and give you a prophecy. In the moment, how would you know if I'm a prophet or not?
I would have to know what scripture saying, know what not you what he's speaking.
Right. And so that's one of the reasons why this is one of the reasons why this is a commandment, okay? So before we get into this, we'll read this later on, but let's go 5 chapters ahead right quick in chapter 18, because it delves a little bit more deeper into prophethood and how you know what's the qualifications, why that's important. In Deuteronomy 18, I'm going to start at verse 8. No, I'm going to start at verse 9. Okay, because you can't really understand 13 fully without understanding the role that prophets played. So in Deuteronomy chapter 18 and verse 9, it says, when thou art come into the land which Yah your Elohim giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yah. And because of these abominations, Yah your Elohim driveth them out from before you. This is important. Okay, it says, well, excuse me, let me keep going first before I say that. In verse 13, it says, thou shalt be perfect with Yah your Elohim, letting us know that it is possible to be perfect. There's a saying, you can't be perfect, all right? It's possible to be perfect because the commandments is telling you to be. In 14, it says, for these nations, this is the key, for these nations which thou shalt possess, hearken unto observers of times and unto diviners, but as for you, Yah your Elohim have not suffered you to do so. Now, verse 14 is important. When you read throughout the scriptures, as a matter of fact, in Brother Rob's lesson that he did, he brought out how King Nebuchadnezzar, when he had his dream, who was the first people who he sought after to interpret his dream? What you said? Exactly. It wasn't the Israelites first. He sought after his astrologers, his prognosticators, right? Why? Because these are people who are important when it comes to decision-making of a nation. If King Nebuchadnezzar is the leader, whatever he says goes. Whatever direction he wants the nation to go in, that's where it goes. But he can be influenced by wizards, necromancers, astrologers, right? These are people who can sway his thought process one way to the other, okay? The Most High is telling us he has not allowed us to do such things, not to listen to these people. Why? He has given us people who are going to do the same thing, just in a different way. It says in verse 15, Yah thy Elohim will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee. Of thy brethren, like unto me, unto him shall you hearken. So we don't listen to wizards, we don't listen to necromancers, we don't listen to all these people. We listen to prophets. A prime example of that, when you read in the book of 1 Kings, when King Ahab and King Jehoshaphat, they were coming together to go to war. Who did they seek to know whether or not they would be profitable in battle? They didn't seek necromancers. They didn't seek astrologers. They sought all of the prophets in the land. What is that letting us know? It's letting us know that prophets serve a purpose. They serve the purpose of giving us the word of God and giving us the direction that the Most High wants his people to go in. It says in verse 16, why do we have prophets? What's the reason why we have prophets? Verse 16 says, according to all that thou desirest of Yah in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yah my Elohim, neither let me see this great fire anymore, that I die not. So we have prophets because our ancestors, when reading or when hearing those 10 commandments that we read every service, they heard that from the mouth of God himself. And they were so afraid that they said, look, we don't want God to talk to us. We can't have God talk to us because we're going to die. So instead, Moses, the prophet, you go talk to God and tell us everything that he told you to tell us. This is the purpose of a prophet. Okay? Verse 17. And Yah said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. So it's not like they were wrong for saying we don't want to hear God's voice. The Most High said they have well spoken that which they have spoken because he wanted to establish his fear in them. So in verse 18, he says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren. So here's the first qualification. A prophet is not going to be anybody other than an Israelite. It says from among your brethren. That means people like the prophet Muhammad. This is not a prophet. Okay, this is not a prophet of Yah. He might be a prophet of some other God. Okay, but he's not a prophet of Yah. A prophet must be from among the children of Israel. That's the first thing. It says, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So the next role that a prophet plays is speaking whatever God has told him to say. Okay? Those are the two things that you can know initially, right? Then it says in verse 19, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. Now, in a perfect world, that's it on that. We can go back to Deuteronomy 13. But in a perfect world, you won't have to worry about somebody falsely proclaiming to be a prophet. In a perfect world. But as we know, we don't live in a perfect world. And what you have now is you have people who will do stuff like in Deuteronomy 13. Even though it's calling this person a prophet, they're not actually a prophet. Okay? So this person is saying, let us go and serve other gods. All right? And they give you a sign or a wonder. In verse 2, it says that this person's intent behind coming to you is to get you to serve somebody else. Please understand, it will not be this obvious if a prophet is trying to get you to serve another god. Satan is not that, his deception is pretty good, to say the least, okay? So it's not going to be as obvious as, oh, I am a false prophet and I want you to come and serve another god. No. No, they have to get you to serve what you think is your God, but get you to do all the rituals for another God. They have to come to you and say, I'm a prophet. I heard the Most High talk to me, and God never talked to them. This is how the deception works. This is why it's so important, because in verse 3, what did it say? You shall not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for Yah, your Elohim, proveth you. This is letting us know that the Most High is continuously and always proving us to know what's in our heart. And he will put you in the face of a person who is speaking falsely as a false prophet to see what you're going to do. Are you going to do what he told you to do? Or are you going to do what this person is claiming that he told you to do? In verse 4, it says, you shall walk after Yah, your Elohim, and fear him, and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and cleave unto him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken to turn you away from Yah, your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, to thrust thee out of the way which Yah, your Elohim, commanded you to walk in. So shalt thou put evil away from the midst of thee. Now, again, in a perfect world, you can dismiss and get rid of any false prophet. We don't live in a perfect world. So now you have false prophets running rampant. Okay, they're on social media, they're out in the streets, they're everywhere. And there's no consequences. So because of that now, the onus is on us to be more aware and more studied in these scriptures, because there are so many people who are trying to divert your attention away from where it's supposed to be, which is being obedient to the Most High's commandments. Do we have any questions or comments about that? Because that's the end of this portion of the law. Any points? Any references? All right, moving forward. In verse 6. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so with that, an example of that would be like with the false prophet, the man of God that he told to go and speak to the king and the king's hand wizard. And he told him not to eat or drink in that land. And then a false prophet came and told him that the Lord told him it was okay. And he followed him back in the lion.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Could that be like an example of
Well, that's actually a perfect example. So let me just repeat what you said for those on the live, because the mics don't correspond with this phone. You're bringing up the situation where a man was I don't know exactly where it's at. I know it's in Kings. But you're bringing up a situation where a man was told to go and prophesy to one of the kings. And the specific instruction that he received from the Most High was, the route that you take to this king to go and prophesy to him, do not come back that same route. He said, take a different route. Okay? So he went a route and spoke to the king. And after he spoke to him, he met another prophet. He met another prophet before he went back. And this other prophet told him, it's okay. You can go back the way that you came. And he did not listen to what the Most High told him to do. He listened to who he perceived to be a prophet, which actually that man was a real prophet too, by the way. It doesn't say this, but he was testing him to see if he would walk in the Most High's commandments or not. It's probably best if I find this verse for you, so that way we can read to see what you're talking about. But I'm not sure exactly where it's at. Does anybody know what she's referring to? It's 1 Kings 13. 1 Kings 13, just so you can see what we're talking about. And we don't have to spend too much time here, but I just want to show you guys the reference point that the sister is bringing up here. So you can see a real life example or situation in the Bible of Deuteronomy 13. 13. Yeah, 1 Kings 13. Okay, so First Kings chapter 13, I'm gonna just start at 1, and I'm gonna jump around here. So it says in 1 Kings 13, it says, and behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of Yah unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar to burn incense. And he cried against the altar in the word of Yah and said, O altar, altar, thus saith Yah, behold, a child shall be born unto the house of David, Josiah by name, and upon thee shall he offer the priests of the high places that burn incense upon thee, and men's bones shall be burnt upon thee. Now, the reason why he's saying this is because Jeroboam was a wicked king, and what he is telling him is these wicked priests who are offering up these wicked sacrifices to these false gods that Jeroboam has instituted, they are going to die by way of being burnt themselves on this very altar. That's what he just said. Okay, let's get to the specific commandment. It says, verse 7, let me skip down to verse 7. It says, and the king said unto the man of God, come home with me and refresh thyself, and I will give thee a reward. And the man of God said unto the king, if thou wilt give me half thine house, I will not go in with thee. Neither will I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For it was charged me by the word of Yah, saying, eat no bread nor drink water, nor turn again the same way by that thou camest. So we see here the commandment to this prophet was, it wasn't just to not go the way that he returned, but it was also not to eat or drink too. So he was given 3 things specifically to him, and he stated what those 3 things was. Okay, if you skip down to verse 11, it says, now there dwelt an old prophet in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel, the words which he had spoken unto the king. Them they told also to their father. And their father said unto them, what way went he? For his sons had seen the man of God, seen the way that the man of God went, which came from Judah. And he said unto his sons, saddle me the ass. So they saddled him the ass, and they rode thereon, and went after the man of God, and found him sitting under an oak. And he said unto him, art thou the man of God that camest from Judah? And he said, I am. Then he said unto him, come home with me and eat bread. And he said, I may not return with thee, nor go in with thee, neither eat bread nor drink water in this place. For it was said to me by the word of Yah, thou shalt eat no bread nor drink water with thee, nor turn again to go by the way which thou camest. This is the second time he's saying this. He said it to the king. He is now telling it to this old prophet and to his sons. I've given a specific commandment. I can't do X, Y, and Z, etc. What does the old prophet say? Verse 18, he said unto him, I am a prophet also, as thou art. And the angel spake unto me by the word of Yah, saying, bring him back with thee in thine house, that he may eat bread and drink water. But he lied unto him. Okay? It says, but he lied unto him. So this man, he was able to convince a prophet, a righteous man, a prophet of Yah. He was able to convince him to go against the commandments by saying that he was a prophet. I need you guys to really understand how powerful this is in a negative way. The way that you get somebody to do something against the Most High, it's not going to be as simple as, I'm a false prophet, come serve my gods with me. It's not going to be that simple. It's going to be something like this. I'm a prophet just like you. The Most High talked to me just like he talked to you. The angel of God came and told me, nah, tell him to come back and eat bread. Now, in your mind, what was this man probably thinking in his mind? The Most High told me not to do this, but then the Most High told him that I can come back and eat now? He was probably second guessing himself, thinking maybe the Most High must see how hungry I am and he telling me I can go back and eat now. I mean, we're just speculating, but the point is, these are things that will run in our heads, okay? And this is all Satan needs to lure you into whatever he's trying to get, whatever he's trying to do. That's the point. So this is the example that you're referencing, sister. And as you pointed out, when you read later on in this chapter, he ends up going back, he eats bread, he drinks water, and a lion kills him. Okay? So, unfortunately for this brother, he failed that test. But this is why that's so important, and this is why we must understand Deuteronomy 13. You cannot listen to false prophets. Cannot. And it's very deceptive. And the only way that you can combat that is with the word of God yourself. So, does that suffice the situation? Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments about that first law in Deuteronomy 13? Okay. So now we can go back to that. And we'll pick up at verse 6. So verse 6 through 11 is another commandment. This is going to be talking about the people who are closest to you, right? So it says in Deuteronomy 13 and verse 6, if your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or your daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which is as thine own soul, entice thee secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, namely of the gods of the people which are round about you, nigh unto you, or far off from thee. For from the one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. Thou shalt not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him. Neither shall thine eye pity him, neither shalt thou spare, neither shalt thou conceal him. But thou shalt surely kill him. Thine hand shall be the first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hands of all the people. And thou shalt stone him with stones that he die, because he has sought to thrust thee away from Yah, your Elohim, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. And all Israel shall hear and fear, and shall do no more such wickedness as this is among you. Now, what are we getting from this commandment before I just get into it?
It don't matter how close you are to anybody. If they tell you to go against the Most High and serve other gods, you gotta kill them.
Exactly.
They start to tell you away from the Father.
Exactly, Gabe. That's the point. What Gabe stated, if you didn't hear him on the live, Gabe stated that it doesn't matter who it is. That's why it was set up like that. It just brought your brother in this equation. It brought up your friend in this equation. It brought up your sister in this equation. It brought up your wife or spouse in this equation. Your loyalty first, okay, is always going to be to the Most High. It's never going to be to somebody else. And if your loyalty is to somebody else above the Most High, I promise you, Satan will capitalize on that. I'm going to say that one more time. Your loyalty should be to the Most High first and above everything else. If somebody is not aligned with that loyalty to the Most High as you are, you're going to have a problem. If somebody else has more loyalty to you in your mind and in your heart than the Most High, I can guarantee it 1,000%. Satan will capitalize on that. That's why it was set up like that. Anybody else see anything in this commandment?
It's still the same at the end, no matter where you are, don't go after other gods.
Really, it doesn't matter. 7 is just telling you, it don't matter how close in proximity these false gods are to you or not, right? So in other words, let's say me and you are brothers, and I come and tell you, man, bro, they got some new gods over there in Babylon, man. We ain't never been to Babylon, ever. I took a trip to Babylon. I said, man, they gods over there, man, they got some cold gods over there. They ain't like these Canaanite gods over here. They ain't like Baal and Dagon and all them. No, they got some Tammuz and Nimrod. It doesn't matter if they're close or far. That's basically what it's telling you. No other gods. None. None. You know, for whatever reason, somebody may be enticed because they're not close to you. Anybody else have any points? Yes, ma'am.
That, and as the Bible often references other gods like wood and stone, but gods or idols can be jobs or things that we
So just to repeat what you said for those on the live, you're saying that in the Bible, gods are wood and stone, right? They're carved images. And in a modern context, gods today could be anything that you put in such a high esteem that's close to God, like a job, or what were some of the other examples?
A job or something that you possess.
Right, something that you possess. And I think that's part of the setup, right? Because typically you might possess, you might have a partner or somebody who you highly esteem, right? Your children you might highly esteem. This is why this verse is set up like that. Because let's just say that we take people out of it and we put inanimate objects or concepts like a job. If your loyalty is to your job above the Most High, you're gonna have a problem. If your loyalty is to your business above the Most High, you're gonna have a problem. You can take that out, like that's a blank. You can potato head that and put whatever there. If your loyalty to that, and you really have to like think about that within yourself, like nobody can really know that. That's like an inner man, type of a situation that you have to go through with yourself. You know if you have something that's up here in close proximity with the Most High, even usurping it. And if you do, I can guarantee you, you're gonna have a problem. And Satan will capitalize off that. Please remember in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13 to 14 says that every work shall be brought into judgment, whether it be good or evil. Every work. Another thing that I wanted to point out before we move on is that it's stated here, when we had our own government and we have our own justice system and we could implement capital punishment, notice that it says, you are supposed to be the first one. Typically, somebody who is like a loved one like that, like a friend who is as your own soul or whatever, even if they committed a sin, is your mind gonna be really that like willing to do that, be the first one? Like, I'm not really asking that as a question, it's more rhetorical, but you have to really think about that. He's telling you right here, your offense to this should be so great, whatever relationship that y'all had, it's like it never even existed. I'm gonna say that one more time. He's telling you to be the first one. He's telling your eye not to pity. He's telling you not to spare. He's telling you not to conceal him. He said you need to be the first one. That means that it can't even be close. My brother's right here and then the Most High is right here. No. It got to be like everybody is down here somewhere and then the Most High is like, I can't even reach. Okay? This is what the Most High is telling you. This is how serious he is. And if you're not this serious, again, gonna have a problem.
Are we saying in this context that the gods are made, that he's referring to are only made of wood and stone? Is that what we're saying?
What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, are we saying that when there's a mention of other gods, are we only referring to wood and stone?
In this context, yes.
Where do you see that at? Where is that, like, how is that specifically stated in here?
In verse 7, it says, namely, of the gods of the people which are round about you.
Mm-hmm.
The gods of the people which are round about us is talking about who are round about us. The Canaanites lived among us. The Philistines lived to the south. The Syrians lived to the north. The Ammonites lived to the east. The Moabites lived in the southeast. What are all those gods? Dagon's the god of the Philistines. The Syrians have their god. Chemosh or whatever. Oh no, that's the Ammonites' gods. The Moabites have their own god. The Canaanites have Baal. He said, namely of the gods of the people which are round about you. So he's not talking about like a job or a business here.
No, I'm not talking about what it can be compared to or what we revere as gods today. I'm not saying that. I'm asking the gods that are referred to in this context, are they only referring to wood and stone? That's what I'm asking. And if so, how can we prove that? You're saying that, or not you, but we're saying that idols are just gods? These other nations that build certain statues and idols, those are the only gods that the Most High is referring to? There's wood and stone things that can't breathe and have no power at all?
Well, what's the alternative?
That, like an example, in the same chapter, verse 13, the children of Belial. There's not a I'm sure the statues of Belial, but I know Belial, like in other instances, actually had power that he gave to other nations. They also had prophets. So it's like that's the same example with Ezekiel, I think, when he had challenged the other prophets. I think there was a Belial to when they both had to make sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
So that was.
Wait, hold up.
Was it
You mean Elijah?
Elijah?
All right, and he went against the prophets of Baal, not Belial.
Okay, still nonetheless, Belial, I'm sure there was idols and statues made of that god or whatever they thought he looked like, but it wasn't just about wood and stone. That's what I'm saying. These guys actually had power, and they were able to do certain things, even in Egypt, when those prophets were able to turn the staff, just like Moses was. This wasn't because of wood and stone. It was because these things actually existed.
Well, these things actually did exist.
What, wood and stone?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the entities that you're referring to.
That's what I'm saying. So are we talking about wood, stone, or entities, or all three?
Well, first thing is this. The question, just to rephrase it for those on the live, you're asking, are we talking about fake images, all right, or carved images that don't have any life in them, or are we talking about spiritual entities?
Right.
All of these deities are, in fact, spiritual entities, and the images that are made after them are based off of the fact that they are real spiritual entities.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the children of Israel even admit this in the book of Judges. You could find it, I don't know exactly where it's at, but Jephthah went against the Ammonites, okay? And one of the things that he mentioned to the Ammonites is he said, Chemosh, who is the god of the Ammonites, gave them their land. Because that's the mindset. The mindset that these people had was that these gods, even though they're wood and stone and they have no breath and they have no life, etc., they are spiritual entities that are purposed behind them. And those spiritual entities is what allowed us to do what we do today. Dagon is the same way, Baal is the same way. And all of these gods are the same. All of them.
Did our God create these gods?
Yes. Because the Most High is the creator of everything. The point is, again, this is a deeper conversation. We can talk about this a little bit afterwards. But the point is, if you're asking the simple question of, are these deities, these idols, are these fake? Are these like non-spiritual entities? The answer to that is no. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments about that? Or in this law, particularly? So again, I just want to stress this point before we move on. Everybody, doesn't matter who they are, no matter how close they are to you, they need to be somewhere down there. And the Most High need to be somewhere way up there that you can't reach in terms of how you look at them, how you reverence them, how you listen to them, etc., how you obey them. Okay? Moving forward. Verse 12 now. If thou shalt hear say, in one of thy cities, which Yah your Elohim giveth thee to dwell therein, saying, certain men, the children of Belial, are gone out from among you, and have withdrawn the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known. Thou shalt inquire and make search, and ask diligently, and behold, if it be true, and the thing certain, that such an abomination is wrought among you, thou shalt surely smite the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, destroying it utterly, and all that is therein, and the cattle thereof with the edge of the sword, and thou shalt gather all the spoil of it into the midst of the street thereof, and shalt burn with fire the city, and all the spoil thereof, every whit, for Yah thy Elohim, and it shall be an heap forever. It shall not be built again, and there shall cleave naught of the cursed thing to thy hand, that Yah may turn from the fierceness of his anger, and show thee mercy, and have compassion upon thee, and multiply thee as he has sworn unto thy fathers. When thou shalt hearken to the voice of Yah thy Elohim, to keep all his commandments which I command thee this day, to do that which is right in the eyes of Yah thy Elohim. So, what are we getting from this commandment? Here, starting at verse 12. Starting at verse 12. We start off by saying, certain men have gone and turned their whole city. Okay, we see how, like, these religions, they grow. You see brothers who are in these religions, they go out and they teach people. It's a movement. There's a reason why they're called movements. Movements, you attract people. More and more people start to become part of this movement. Okay, that's how they work. What this is telling you is, if certain men create a movement and they're able to sway the entire population of a city, talking about one of our cities now, all right, in our land, this is completely and utterly unacceptable. And we see the consequences for it. The consequences for it, all those people must be destroyed. And everything that they possessed, all the wealth, the value, whatever, all that's destroyed too. So you can't take nothing with you after you're done. Okay, you can't say, oh, this is valuable. None is valuable. That whole thing need to be just purged, and it said it'll be a heap forever. Why is it gonna be a heap forever? So when people pass by it and they see the destruction, they know never to let happen to them what happened to those people. Any questions or comments about that?
Because that's almost like Sodom and Gomorrah, we destroyed the city.
Absolutely. That's exactly like Sodom and Gomorrah. But Sodom and Gomorrah weren't Israelites. The only difference between that and this, these people are Israelites.
And Sodom and Gomorrah was already corrupt.
Hmm?
Sodom and Gomorrah was already corrupt, but they had a righteous person.
Exactly. The sister says Sodom and Gomorrah was already corrupt, but they had a righteous person. And that's why when Abraham was asking the Most High, if they had 50 people in this land, would you destroy it? If you had 40 people in this land, would you destroy it? If you had 30 people in this land, would you destroy it? He kept going lower and lower just to see. In this case, nobody. And that's why the angels had to remove Lot. Because once they removed Lot, it was nobody. And then, once it's nobody, he forever, pillar of salt. Now, before we move on, I just want you guys to realize how uneasy the average person might be knowing that God has told people to do this. Everything that we just read. I really need you to think about that for a second. The average person in this world, in this civilized nation that we call the United States of America, is so watered down in their thinking in terms of how the Most High is, his nature, his character. The idea that he actually said this is so far beyond them. It's like it's not even fathomable. What you saying, brother?
Not my God.
Nah, exactly. Not my God. My God not gonna tell me to kill my brother. Like the Most High cares about your brother. The Most High does not care about none of that stuff. The only reason why I'm making this point is to make sure that we do not have that mindset. Because yes, the God that you serve, supposedly, allegedly, said this. And if you was living during this time, it's only because you're in captivity right now. But if you was living in this time, you would be expected to do these things. And if you didn't, you would be in sin. As a matter of fact, your ancestors didn't. And that's why you're here today. So just keep that in mind as we go into these things.
This is kind of random, but is there a specific reason why the Most High mandates we must include the cattle?
When destroying something?
The whole field.
But hold on. Yeah, go on, brother. Let me
It's like whole environment was saying.
Let me repeat the questions for those in live. You asking, is there a reason why the Most High would tell you to destroy everything, including cattle and you know, value, quote unquote, valuable
I have an
possession?
idea, but like, can we prove it?
Brother Cecil, would you mention, my brother?
Hmm?
What did you mention?
Everything is contaminated. It's corrupt and filthy. So people want you to have part of it.
Exactly. So what Brother Cecil said is that everything is corrupted. Everything is corrupted. Now you're asking for proof. Okay, that's what you're asking for.
Pure. Yeah.
You're asking for proof. The proof is in the law. Okay. King David said in Psalms 119 and 104, through thy precepts I get understanding. So if you go to Leviticus 18 right quick, we're not going to be here long. But let me just show you something. This is why you kill the cattle too. Okay. In Leviticus 18, what is Leviticus chapter 18 talking about? Does anybody remember that? No.
Oh.
That's Leviticus 1, 2, and 3.
When you say
Unlawful sexual relations.
Yeah, right. That's correct, Brother Ricky. What did you say? Say it again.
Unlawful sexual relations.
Unlawful sexual relations. That is the whole chapter in Leviticus 18. The whole chapter. Everything in Leviticus 18, for the most part, is talking about fornication, aka illicit sexual acts, aka sins. Okay, sinning against your own body. Proof of that is in Leviticus chapter 18 and verse let's just get to the end. We'll start from the end and we'll go back. Let's go to verse 24 in Leviticus 18. Let me show you something. Okay, this is the proof. In verse 24, it says, defile not you yourselves in any of these things. So everything that was just listed prior, he's saying not to defile yourself in any of these things. Okay, for in all these, the nations are defiled. Meaning the other peoples who we come into contact with, they do these things. All of them. That's why they're being mentioned. It says, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you, and the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomited out her inhabitants. Now, what are some of the things that those nations do as it relates to cattle? It says in verse 23. Oh, wow, that was the verse before that. I should have read that earlier. Anyway, verse 23, neither shalt thou lie with any beast to defile thyself therewith. Neither shall any woman stand before a beast to lie down there too. It is confusion. So what is this telling you? These beasts that you could be potentially wanting to ask for a sacrifice for, like Saul was, you don't know what happened to these beasts. You don't know.
They did.
Exactly. You sitting here trying to offer a calf to the Most High as a sacrifice for the feast days, and this calf then had a human deal with it for ritualistic purposes. This is why you kill the
Going
calf.
on in Mexico today, but right now.
It's still going on everywhere, my brother. It's still going on everywhere. Most people just don't know about it.
That makes sense. It kind of reminded me of Job too, when I think the Most High commanded him to tell the Ninevites for the cattle to eat and rest. So yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted some clarity. That's all.
It's no problem, man. It's no problem. The cattle is part of everything is part of it, all right? The servants are part of it. The money is part of it, all of that stuff, okay? So moving forward, we're going to Deuteronomy 14 now, okay? Going to Deuteronomy 14 now. All right. Deuteronomy 14 and verse 1, it says, "You are the children of Yah, your Elohim. You shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. For thou art an holy people unto Yah thy Elohim, and Yah hath chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself, above all nations that are upon the earth." Now, verse 1 is the commandment here. Okay, well, there's a couple of commandments here. What are we getting from this?
Sacrificing our bodies.
I'm sorry, sis, go ahead.
Sacrificing our bodies for false gods.
Sacrificing your bodies for false gods.
For the dead.
Separation.
Separation.
Yes, sir.
Separation, being holy. Okay, what were you saying, Gabe?
Wait, you was talking about, you was asking what was the title, or what was?
No, we're breaking down these commandments now, so we're talking about it. Okay, so you should not cut yourselves. Do we remember what this law is repeating? All right, because remember, Deuteronomy repeats laws, okay? So the cutting yourselves is talking about, well, and this is where Sister Amuna is getting the gods from, okay? Because cutting yourself is an ancient practice that people would do. It was called scarification. You could look it up on your own time. But scarification is the process by which you harm yourself as a way to show mourning to your deity.
It's not that, I forgot who it was, I think it was it Elijah?
Elijah.
You know, the 10 verses of prophets. And if I remember correctly,
You're remembering correctly.
yeah, so they set up an altar, right? And if I remember correctly, he was saying whenever this guy sets the altar, like the altar on fire without using anything, is the real God. When that guy wasn't answering, he was like mocking them, and they started like cutting themselves.
Now, what he is referring to is in 1 Kings 18, the battle between the prophets, Elijah, and then the prophets of Baal. Basically, those prophets were proven to be false prophets. And what they did to appease their God because he wasn't answering, quote unquote, they started cutting themselves because they felt like this would get him to answer. Okay? So that is a part.
So that's sacrifice.
It's not really a sacrifice. It's more like affliction. Just like there are ways for us to afflict ourselves, like that's what the next verses or the next line talking about making baldness upon your heads. This is a form of affliction. So Brother Ricky gave a lesson about how to properly fast, right? And within that lesson, there are concepts that talk about how we afflict our souls, okay? When we're mourning, when we've committed sins, when we're, going through that process of being contrite. Those are some of those processes. But what do you see? It's a similar dynamic, right? We afflict ourselves by not eating. We afflict ourselves by wearing sackcloth. We can afflict ourselves by putting ashes upon our head, right? You see here that they afflicted themselves by cutting themselves, but the concept is still the same. You're doing that for the purpose of trying to appease your God, okay? The next part says, nor make baldness between your eyes for the dead. Now, what do we think this is talking about?
Shaving it, making long between shaving head.
Right. So what is this verse talking about specifically though? Because it says between your eyes for the dead. If we think between our eyes, usually we're thinking about this right here. But what this is actually talking about, it is talking about your entire head, okay? You're not supposed to make yourself bald for the dead, okay? This is another thing that would happen. As a matter of fact, we didn't bring this out in the lesson about how to properly fast, but this is something that people actually, this is another way that we afflicted ourselves, okay? We didn't just wear sackcloth, or we didn't just wear ashes on our head or whatever. There are times where you can read about people who shaved off all of their head upon realizing sins were committed, okay? So this is also another way that we did that. But what the Most High is telling us here is we cannot do that for the dead. But we did do this for the purposes of appeasing him whenever we committed sins. And you can read about examples of that. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
Would that be the same as sometimes, they would shave their heads after the completion of the vow?
No, that's different.
That's different.
Yeah, that's different. You're talking about the Nazirite vow. And after your Nazirite vow is completed, you do shave off your head, yes. And I think you sacrifice. I could be wrong on that, but you are supposed to shave it off at least. Now, well, before I get into that, does anybody else have any other questions or comments about that?
So like with the tattoos, they get the loved one died, you tattoo their name on your body. Is that what you're talking about? Like in days time?
So this law is not talking about tattoos specifically, but this law is repeating the same law in Leviticus 19 that does reference tattoos. As a matter of fact, we probably should go to that so that we can see it. In Leviticus 19,
20.
I think it's 27. This is one of them. It's either 27 or 28.
28. 27 around the corners of your ears.
Right.
What?
19.
Leviticus 19. So as we can see, right, we see in Deuteronomy chapter 14, it's repeating these same laws here in Leviticus 19, verse 27 and 28. In Leviticus 19, verse 27 and 28, or excuse me, yeah, I'm gonna read 27 too, because we just read that in Deuteronomy 14. You shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shall you mar the corners of your beard. Right, so this is the same thing as Deuteronomy 14, where it's talking about making baldness upon your head for the dead. It just added the caveat that you're doing it for the dead. But the point here is in Leviticus 19 and 27, you're cutting your hair for the purposes of mourning, okay? It says in verse 28, you should not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead. Now Deuteronomy 14 referenced this one. This is different from tattoos. The tattoos is nor print any marks upon you. The printing marks is where you can get the tattoo application from. So although it's not specifically stated in Deuteronomy 14, it is specifically stated here. And that's where you can get that from. You will have people who try to say that tattoos are not a sin. That is not the case. They will read verses like in Revelations where it says there's a name written on Christ's thigh, and they'll correlate that to him having a tattoo on his thigh.
I've never heard that in my life.
I'm telling you, people say it.
Tattoo.
People find any way to justify behavior. Anyway, the point is the same. The printing marks upon you is where the tattoo application come in, not so much Deuteronomy 14. Any other questions or comments about that? So in verse 3, it says, thou shalt not eat any abominable thing, right? We should know this. This is one of the first things that we learn in the truth. Verse 4 says, these are the beasts which you shall eat, the ox, the sheep, and the goat, the hart, and the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat, and the pygarg, and the wild ox, and the chamois, and every beast that parteth the hoof, and cleaveth the cliff into two claws, and cheweth the cud among the beasts that shall you eat. Nevertheless, these ye shall not eat, of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the cloven hoof, as the camel, and the hare, and the coney, for they chew the cud, they divide not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean to you. And the swine, because it divideth the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean unto you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. Okay, let me stop right there. Do we have any questions or comments about this? I know we learn about this first when we come into the truth, but is there any questions or comments about this? Do we understand what chewing the cud means? Right. Everybody understands that? All right. Verse 10, or 9, excuse me. These shall you eat of all that are in the waters. All that have fins and scales shall you eat. And whatsoever have not fins and scales, you may not eat it. It is unclean unto you. All the clean birds you shall eat. These are they which you shall not eat: the eagle, the ostrich, and the osprey, and the glede, and the kite, and the vulture after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl, and the night hawk, and the cacao, and the hawk after his kind, the little owl, and the great owl, and the swan, the pelican, and the gear eagle, and the cormorant, and the stork, and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat. That's the birds. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the birds?
So that one, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. You're gonna have to look that one up, man.
That is like a bat. A bird that is like a bat.
Yeah, it might have, one of the ways you know that birds like that, they'll have like little claws on their wings.
No, it's a bird. It's just a,
Yeah. It's a good practice to look these things up, okay? It's a good practice to look these things up. So that's something that we can do in our spare time, but a lot of people don't eat this stuff anyway, but that's never an excuse to not look it up and do your research yourself. But it goes on to say in verse 19, and every creeping thing that flieth is unclean unto you, they shall not be eaten. But of all clean birds or clean fowls you may eat. You shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. For thou art an holy people unto Yah thy Elohim. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. So we have two commandments here. We cannot eat anything that dies of itself. In other words, if something happens to an animal and you didn't kill it yourself, something else killed it, or they died by disease or something like that, can't eat that. You can sell it, all right, to a stranger. We know that a stranger in this case is talking about a non-Israelite, okay? Because the Israelites cannot eat it. But the strangers, they can eat it. The non-Israelites, they can eat it. The foreigners from somewhere else, they can eat it. You can sell that meat to them. But you yourself cannot eat it, all right? Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. That's self-explanatory. Does anybody have any questions or comments about these two commandments? All right, tithes. We should all know this. Verse 22, thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, which the field bringeth forth year by year, and thou shalt eat before Yah your Elohim in the place which he choose to place his name there, the tithe of thy corn, and of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the firstlings of thy herds and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yah thy Elohim always. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which Yah your Elohim shall choose to set his name there, when Yah thy Elohim hath blessed thee, Thou shalt turn it into money, and bind it in thy hand, and shalt go unto the place which Yah, your Elohim, has chose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desires. Thou shalt eat there before Yah, thy Elohim, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. Okay, just to revert back to some of the conversations that we've had previously, we know that tithe is not money. We know that the only money aspect that has to do with tithes is for you to bring it to purchase something else that will be used for eating, all right? And it also talked about the things that you could use those tithes for, things like strong drink, all right, and wine, etc. Okay, we've had discussions about many of these things in the past, but we just want to see that the law is letting us know that these things are so, all right? This is how we know what's correct and what's not correct. Where was that? Verse 27. And the Levite that is within thy gates, thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no part nor inheritance with you. Again, this is who the tithes was for, the Levites. It says in verse 28, and at the end of 3 years, you shall bring forth all the tithe of thy increase the same year, and shall lay it up within thy gates. And the Levite, because he had no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within thy gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yah, your Elohim, may bless thee in all the work of thine hand, which thou doest. Okay, so this is letting us know those of us who had gardens, who had fields of food or whatever, they had to, every 3 years, they had to take their increase and they had to leave it, okay, for whoever wanted it.
I just got a question, because that's something I was kind of studying before. So in 2 Kings, right, chapter 12, verse 4 through 21, it was mentioned that the priest, right, although tithing isn't about money, I know that some of the Israelites, some of us gave the priest money for the sanctuary. Was that for it just to be built? And that's it, right?
So what you're talking about, that is a good question. That is not tithes.
I know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought you was asking me, is that tithes?
No,
Okay.
I know. What I said was, I know tithing was to deal with harvest.
Right.
What I'm saying is, when people, like the ordinary person, when they hear that, they're gonna think, okay, well, the priest didn't get any money at all. You see what I'm saying?
No, the priest did get money, yes.
Okay, so that's what I was.
Yeah. So what he's referencing is in 2 Kings chapter 12, what would happen is, first of all, when we had our own government, we still had a tax. Okay? Meaning there was a portion of all of our wealth that we had to pay to our government to run us, right? Or the monarchy, because we had a monarchy. And that money would be used if, let's say, a nation was coming against us in war. They would say, either we're going to destroy you or we'll fight. But let's say we were afraid and we didn't want to fight. What we would do is we'd take the money out the treasury and give it to them so that they didn't come and make war with us. Okay? But if you don't have no money in the treasury, I mean, well, you know, that's the end of that, right? Now, if we were strong enough, we just fight. But you can see the circumstances there. What you had was there was always money that was dedicated to the expansion and the maintenance of the kingdom. And when they built the temple, obviously we know that every building needs maintenance, right? This building that we're in needs maintenance. Your house needs maintenance. Your apartment needs maintenance. And so you need money to be able to get the guys to repair those breaches. And so when the temple had breaches, the money would be bestowed to the priests. The priests would distribute the money to the carpenters, the masons, etc., and they would repair those breaches. That's what that is. You will have people who try to suggest, though, that concept is tithing in order to facilitate making their congregations give them money, because the congregation giving you money is more similar to that as opposed to tithing.
So what about within our community, when there's leaders asking for you to support?
So what about in our community when leaders asking us for support for what?
Like finances to help, whether that be their channel or their outreach to go to other places? Would you call a brother or sister and say, well, you shouldn't do that?
No, because there's no law against that. So if somebody is saying, look, we need support for this group, this organization, whatever, this is how we're asking for support. Can you donate? Can you do this? Can you do that? Whatever. It doesn't really matter how it's done. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. The problem is when you're using the guilt trip mechanism to tell your congregation that the Most High is going to bless you if you give the money.
Call it sowing the seed.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Call it sowing a seed.
It's called sowing the seed. Yeah, quote unquote. Yeah, we sowing seeds by giving money to the church. All right? No, you're not sowing seeds. Or you might be thinking you're sowing seeds, but every seed ain't a good seed, as we know, according to the parables of Christ. So the point is, it's not really what's done, it's the deception behind how it's being done, which is to cause something that is not a tithe, to use the justification that God is going to bless you by giving the tithe, and then reinstilling that by saying, if you don't do it, then you're in error or you're in sin. All of these are guilt trip mechanisms to make somebody do something. But there's nothing wrong with that, though. You have brothers who think that there's something wrong with that, but
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
you can't find no law that's against that. So, I mean,
I've heard, different positions about it.
well, here's the problem. It's hypocritical in nature. The clothes you got on, the house you live in, the electronics that you have, everything that's surrounding your life you had to pay for. You know who that benefits? Your enemies. But somehow it's wrong for your brother to ask for support from somebody who believes in the same thing. It's just stupid. Anyway, do we have any other questions or comments about chapter 14? Yes, sir.
So supporting a good cause and lining a pocket, is that different?
Hey, can you say that again?
Supporting a good cause, say they're asking for a good cause to help some people,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And lining their pockets with that money that they get from the congregation, is that a difference?
You're asking if supporting a good cause while at the same time lining your pockets.
No, same supporting a good cause and taking your money,
Uh-huh.
lining their pockets with it.
So they're not doing nothing for the cause?
Nothing with it, filthy little.
Well, obviously that's wrong, right? That's lying. That's the point. The point is the intent. So you're not actually trying to help this cause, quote unquote. You getting rich. Now, the problem with that is, that's like a thing. Like it's not a clear thing. That's why you have nonprofits. Nonprofits in the United States, these are people who you want to feed the homeless. And you'll take pictures of yourself feeding the homeless. All this money that's being donated, it don't take that much money to feed the homeless. Okay, but let's say that you get an excess of donations. What's being done with the excess money? Well,
Some actually be bold enough to say, I want a new jet, I need a new house, or I need a new car. They're not saying nothing about helping nobody. That's the one I'm asking about.
bro, it's the same point. Either way,
So is that sinning, taking money?
it's not a sin to take money, but it is a sin to lie about what your cause is. Because as a matter of fact, that's in Leviticus 19 and 13. It says, thou shalt not, you could just read it. Let's read it, Leviticus 19 and 13, so you can see what I'm talking about. Because this law is talking about how you do business. Okay? So I'm gonna start at verse 11, just to get the context. In verse 11, it says, you should not steal, neither deal falsely. Okay, a deal is a transaction between two people. You say, look, I'm gonna give you this, you're gonna give me this in exchange, deal, business done. In the case of this is a nonprofit. The people say, look, we wanna feed the homeless, we need donations. The people give donations, those donations need to be dealt with in terms of feeding the homeless, right? That's dealing falsely, because it's a deal done with other motives and intents behind it, all right? When you go on to read, it says, neither lie one to another. The examples that you just gave, it's just straight up lies, okay? In verse 12, it says, you shall not swear by my name falsely. The reason why this precedes that is because this is how we did deals. We had contracts, but you didn't have to have a contract. So if I did a deal with you, I would shake your hand and we would swear on the name of God. This was our contract, okay? And it goes on to say, neither shalt thou profane the name of thy God, I am Yah. All right, it says in verse 13, thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor. All right, defraud is selling something or getting somebody to do something based off of a deceitful tactic. That's what defraud means. All right, it says, neither rob him. The wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. In other words, if you have a business and you have brothers working for you, you're supposed to pay them that day, which coincides with the parable in Matthew chapter 20, which we read a while back. The point is, you see how we get paid every week, every 2 weeks? Every,
Talk about that.
of course. And there's times where people don't pay you for months, right? Especially when you're doing business. The Most High said you can cry out against these people. But if you don't know that, that's in Deuteronomy. We'll read that later. If you don't know that, you don't know that you can actually like controvert some of these oppressive tactics that these people are doing. Okay?
But
So
now it's like, so I guess I don't know, I guess it just depends, but it's as if it's better to get paid every 2 weeks than every day. But I get the point.
yeah. That's how we supposed to do business.
So in the New Testament, the story of the Ananias and Sapphira, they were pretty much breaking that law because they sold the land for a certain amount, but they were deceitful about how much they got for it.
Exactly. So what the sister's bringing up is in Acts chapter 5. Really, it starts in Acts chapter 4. The couple who sold their house, they didn't give all of the money. They kept a portion back, okay? But the deal in that example was all the people, the apostles, and everybody who, were surrounding them, the disciples, everybody had to give everything, okay? It wasn't a percentage, like you give a percent, like we all giving 50%, but your 50% may be more than my 50% because you have more, right? So 50% of 100 is 50, but 50% of 10 is 5. So these numbers don't equate. It wasn't a percentage. Everybody had to give 100% of everything that they had. And that was the deal that everybody agreed to. This couple, they had much possessions, they sold their assets, and they gave a portion. They didn't give everything. Because they didn't give everything, they were destroyed for that. Which is an example, again, like you're mentioning, of dealing falsely. All right, and that's in the book of Acts, latter part of chapter 4, and then going into chapter 5. Great points, by the way, great points.
Yeah, it was just really coming from a place like, because I've really seen it to where, people will refuse to listen to somebody because they would hear them announce, hey, look, anything would help the platform, and then you would hear a position, well, teaching tours should be free, you know what I'm saying? And all, it's just a lot. So when certain of us hear those things, it gets kind of off-putting, but it's almost like you gotta ask yourself, how else in this land that we not reigning, how else can we afford, if knowledge has been lost to this point, some efforts financially have to be kind of pursued in order for things to happen like that. Because we're literally at the four corners, we're not in just one circle no more. So flights ain't $1, you gotta help somehow. So I don't know, I was just asking.
Well, this is part of the curses.
Yeah.
In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, in verse 47, it says, you shall, because you didn't serve God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shall you serve your enemies, whom Yah will send against you in hunger, in thirst, in nakedness, and in want of all things. That curse, when extrapolated and understood, especially in our context, that curse is the reason why you have that. Because what we will willingly do, we will willingly work our butts off at a job for somebody else, right? We will get those resources. We will go to a Walmart or convenience store, wherever, own nothing in there, give all the resources that we just finished working hard for to the heathen, okay, who provide us these resources that we need on a daily basis. And then turn around, even like just take scripture out of it. Let's take scripture out of it. Turn around and go to black businesses and ask for a discount, okay? The reason why that's a bad thing is because you need money to circulate through your community. That's the only way a community builds. When you look at any civilization, a civilization needs a government to facilitate capital so that you can build schools, so that you can build hospitals, you can build banks, you can build roads, you can have infrastructure and jobs create, people working, and working creates people getting stuff done, and getting stuff done keeps your society progressing. You know why we don't know that? Because we live in America where we don't own or govern anything. We don't know or understand what needs to happen in order for you to have your own country, your own system, your own city, town. Many of us don't know that. And it's evident in some of the things that we start to say and do. One of which is what you just finished mentioning. You're getting upset with somebody because they're asking for a donation. Just don't give it to them if you don't want to give it to them. I mean, it's that simple. But to call somebody, what it is too closely related to people asking for tithes. And we know how that is with the Christian church.
That's why I asked my first question.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't get it, because, I was Catholic at one point. You get up at a certain time, you go and put money in the bucket. Even in Christianity, right, same thing, you pass around that, and you put in it. If you think you're helping, I guess give it for a specific purpose. A lot of times it's for a specific person. So I get it.
Yeah, well, we're just to repeat what you said for those on the live, you get why it's happening.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a lot of things.
You have to. It'll be ignorant of anyone to say they don't.
Yeah.
You have to look at it from both sides, don't you?
Well, watch this. This is the perfect segue into the next chapter, in chapter 15. This chapter has so much importance, guys, to how the modern day system works today. I can't stress to you enough how important chapter 15 is. If you were just to read it, you probably wouldn't know. But I'm telling you, in Deuteronomy chapter 15, the people who are claiming to be you, the ones who actually have control over most of the world today, they use these same concepts right here in this chapter. And you know why? Because at one point our ancestors did the same thing and they were kicked out. But let's see what it says. It says here in Deuteronomy 15, verse 1, at the end of every 7 years thou shalt make a release. And this is the manner of the release. Every creditor that lendeth aught unto his neighbor shall release it. He shall not exact it of his neighbor or of his brother, because it is called Yah's release. Do we know what that means? All right, forgiveness. Forgiveness of what? The prayer that we say before service starts? That prayer, forgive them of their debts. Why do you think Christ said that? Because of this right here. You'll have some translations that'll say sins. No, it actually says debts. Okay? The reason why they did that, by the way, just as a historical reference, it was because when the Gentiles took over the Bible, they didn't want Christians, the newly growing religion, to think that governments couldn't take debt from them. That would be an issue. You see, like how if you take out a loan today, you got to pay it. They don't care how long it take you to pay it. They do not care. And if you default, they repossess. In our system, every 7 years, and this wasn't based off of the deal, right? This wasn't me and Asa make a deal and the 7 years starts at the deal. No, the 7 years was already going. If we make a deal in the 6th year, he got 1 year to pay me back. If he don't pay me back in that 1 year, I got to release it. Do we see how that works? So it's not based off of the start of the transaction. It's based off of the continual 7 jubilees that keep on occurring. And you had to release it. But look what it says in verse 3. Of a foreigner, thou mayest exact it again. What does that mean? You don't have to release it for a foreigner. You can make them owe you debt forever. But for your brother, but that which is thine with thy brother, thine hand shall release it. These 3 verses right here is exactly how the people who run these countries, the world today, this is exactly how they do it.
That's how we act too, though. That's how we behave. Like the example, like I'm saying, taking advantage of something like this could also happen. Like when you said one of us could walk into one of our establishments and ask straight away for a discount. We don't walk to a Gucci store asking for a discount. You see what I'm saying?
You're willing to pay because that make you feel better about
yourself. And you have to think, surely there's people in the 6th year, 7 years about to hit, they know they in debt.
Oh, it's going to say that.
Oh.
That's going to say that. It's okay. You preempting it, but it's going to say that too. Yeah. But let's just hone in on this right quick. People who run this world today, this is how they did it. With each other, they release debt. Mortgage loans, if you one of them, they have a different mortgage loan for their own people than they do for regular loans for everybody else. Somebody said that's true? Who said that's true? Y'all said that? You said that too, Sid?
Yeah.
Y'all know it? Y'all know what I'm talking about? All right, so then that means you know how these people are ruling. They're using your word. How they doing our word better than we are? This is what happens when you're committing sin, all right? But this is how they did that. In verse 4, it says, save when there is no poor among you, for Yah shall greatly bless thee in the land which Yah thy Elohim giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it. Basically, the point is, we're supposed to do this until there's no poor among us in our land. Because being poor has a correlation to being in debt. In verse 6, I'm sorry, I skipped verse 5. Verse 5, only if thou carefully hearken to the voice of Yah thy Elohim to observe to do all these commandments which I command thee this day. For Yah thy Elohim blessed thee as he hath promised thee, and thou shalt lend unto many nations. Thou shalt lend unto many nations. Do you have to release those loans? No, you don't, because there are other nations. It says, but thou shalt not borrow, and thou shalt reign over many nations, but they shall not reign over you. I promise you, the number one people in this world right now calling themselves Jews. And this is how they doing it. They lending to every single nation, including this one. And who they got to lend from? Nobody. They got all the funds.
All the banks.
They got all the money. The real and the fake money. They got all of it. I just want you to understand that this Bible is actually living. When the Most High said that the children of Israel will be above all nations with his word, they're doing that. Just so you can see that in real life, they're doing that. And here we are, don't even know how to run a government. Verse 7. This is a new law. So let me stop right here. Do we have any other questions or comments about that? Because that's one commandment of itself. We good with that? So yes, you cannot hold on to debt of your brother or sister. Okay. In verse 7, it says, if there be among you a poor man of thy brethren within any of thy gates in the land which Yah your Elohim giveth thee, Thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shut thine hand from thy poor brother. But thou shalt open thine hand wide unto him, and shalt surely lend him sufficient for his need in that which he wanted. Beware that thou be not a thought in thine wicked heart. So this is what you were talking about earlier, Austin, about preempting the Jubilee, right? It says in verse 9, beware that there be not a thought in thy wicked heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is at hand, and thine eye be evil against thy poor brother, and thou givest him naught, and he cry unto Yah against thee, and it be sin unto thee. This is again how we know that the 7 years is not based off of the deal. The 7 years is reoccurring automatically, whether you're in a deal or not. So if you make a deal in the 6th year, you have 1 year to pay that loan back. And if you don't pay it, it's released. What this is telling you though is, if you're in a position to lend, okay, you can't not lend because you know the 7th year is at hand. But I can promise you that Negroes was doing that, okay? I can promise you they was doing that. And they're saying, well, hold up, I'll give it to you, just wait 1 year. I'll give it to you next year, when the Jubilee has ended and restart.
Someone, if before the year Jubilee, the one in debt passes away, is that automatically released?
No, it's passed to the children.
That's also in Torah?
What is in Torah?
What you just said?
No, that's not, but that's how they did it.
Where-
You're not gonna read that in the Bible.
Where'd you find that?
So in the book of Kings, you have an example where there's a woman, I forget who it was, her son must have had a debt, and the debt passed on somehow to her. There's an example that I have to find it though. Give me 1 second, hold on. That's not a law though. I'm telling you how they did it.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying, but why would it go to the father?
I'm trying to see exactly, because I don't remember the details, but I know she inherited debt, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody know what Asa is asking? All right. He's asking about inheriting debt. Okay, it's in 2 Kings 4, so we can go there to see what that is. Yeah, here you go. That's what it was. It was the husband. That's what
Okay.
it was. The husband.
The husband died.
Yeah, that passed to the sons. So you'll see that in verse 1. So in 2 Kings chapter 4, it says right here, now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, okay, saying, thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear Yah. And the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. So because he owed a debt, and the debt was not finished, or it wasn't paid by the time he died, the creditor is now looking to take his collateral. The collateral in this case is the sons to be slaves. The slaves will, in essence, work off the debt. So they'll work for free until the amount that they worked is equal to the pay that was owed.
Or the year Jubilee is.
Well, we don't know who this creditor is, so we don't even know if this is an Israelite or not. At this time, they're subject to the Syrians, so I don't know about that one. But it says in verse 2, and Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in the house? And she said, thy bondmaid hath not anything in thy house save a pot of oil. Now, when you read this on, Elisha explains to her how she can sell this oil. She uses the money to pay off the debt. But the point is, this man died, he had a debt, the debt passed on to the sons. Okay. You'll see many instances like this. It's not just this one. There's many instances of people who had debt in the scriptures, and it would become inherited by their posterity. All right. Any other questions or comments about that? So So now we're back in Deuteronomy 15. Let's go ahead and finish this, and then we'll call it a day. In verse 7, it says, in Deuteronomy 15, if there be among you a poor man of one of thy brethren within any of thy gates in the land which Yah your Elohim giveth you, thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shut thine hand to thy poor brother. Did I read this already? Yeah. I did read that. Verse 12. Read that verse 12. It says, if thy brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when thou sendest him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, and that of that which Yah your Elohim hath blessed you with, hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and Yah your Elohim redeemed you. Therefore I command thee this thing today. Okay. I want you guys to notice something, by the way, before we get into this. You'll notice that there's a lot of times the Most High will give a commandment, and he'll say, I'm giving you this commandment because I brought you out of Egypt. Okay. So because I brought you out of Egypt, I'm commanding you to do this. You'll hear that phrase repeated a lot. This is always going to be the justification as to why we do what we do in the first place. But anyway, if somebody works for you, if you are an employer and you have a brother or a sister that works for you, they can only work for you a period of 7 years. 6 years. The 7th year they have to go. Unless, there's one caveat to that, unless they do what? Anybody know that?
They happy where they are.
Say it again, relative. Somebody else was about to say something? Say it again?
To decide they want to stay.
Right, if they decide that they want to stay forever, right? They can't just say, I'm going to stay for a couple more years. They got to stay forever, all right? That's in Exodus 21 for your references. Any questions or comments on that? All right. Verse 17 says, or verse 16, it'll tell you that. It shall be, if he say unto thee, I will not go away from thee, because he loveth thee in thine house, because he is well with thee, and thou shalt take an awl and thrust it through his ear unto the door, and he shall be thy servant forever. And also unto thy maidservant thou shalt do likewise. It shall not seem hard unto thee when thou sendest him away from thee, for he hath been worth a double hired servant to thee in serving thee 6 years, and Yah your Elohim shall bless you in all that thou doest. Okay? So that's the caveat. Verse 19 goes on to say, all the firstling males that come of thy herd and of thy flock thou shalt sanctify unto Yah your Elohim. Thou shalt do no work with the firstling of thy bullock, nor shear the firstling of thy sheep. Okay? This is another commandment that many people don't know. You cannot allow your firstborn males that open their mother's matrix, you can't do work with them. Okay? At this time, people use bulls and stuff to do work. They also sheared sheep for clothes. Okay? You couldn't do that with the firstlings of the males. Those had to be sacrificed. All right? It goes on to say, verse 20, thou shalt eat it before Yah your Elohim year by year in the place which Yah shall choose, thou and thy household. And if there be any blemish therein, as if it be lame or blind or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice it unto Yah your Elohim. Thou shalt eat it within thy gates. The unclean and the clean person shall eat it alike, as the roebuck and as the hart. Only thou shalt not eat the blood thereof. Thou shalt pour it upon the ground as water. All right. Firstlings of the males. They're sanctified. You're supposed to put those to the side. All right. And even though we're not sacrificing anything, because you can't sacrifice anything now, the point is that if the law is telling you that you can't do work with these animals, you should still not do work with these animals, because these are still sanctified in the eyes of God. You just can't sacrifice them. Okay? Do you have any questions or comments about that? Okay. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. It's 4:46. Do we have any questions or comments about anything in the commandments that we learned today or that might be applicable? Because again, the reason why I'm doing this, it's important to know these commandments. There's a lot of these commandments that people are not knowing, okay? Whether or not it's applicable to you is irrelevant. The point is you should know these things because the Most High commanded it to us. And in order for you to be wise or have wisdom, as the scripture states, you must keep his commandments. And in order for you to keep them, you have to know them. So irregardless of whether they're applicable to you or not, we still have brothers and sisters. Some of these commandments might be applicable to them. You're supposed to correct your brother or sister according to the law. And therefore, you can't even keep that law of correcting brothers or sisters if you don't know it yourself, okay? So this is why these things are important, along with the fact that you will be judged by these commandments when it comes to whether or not you make it into the kingdom of heaven. So if that's not a big enough thing, I don't know what it is. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments about anything that we talked about today or any commandments or whatever the case is? All right, if not, we'll end today's service with a prayer. Does anybody have any prayer requests? Anything going on with anyone before we close out today? No? All right. All right, we'll close out, face Jerusalem, and end off today's holy convocation with a prayer. Hear, O Israel, Yah our Elohim is one. Father, we come to you now to thank you for allowing us to gather here on your holy Sabbath. We just ask that you continue to lead us and guide us in your word, in your truth, and your wisdom. We ask that you unite our hearts to fear your name. And we ask that you remember your covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. In your holy name's sake do we ask these things.